You ever notice how a man says hello to a woman he barely knows, and yet in that brief word there's something trembling beneath it, as if he's standing at the edge of a cliff, facing not just her presence, but the possibility that his entire emotional world could change? That greeting, it's not just casual. It's a moment where the unconscious reaches out, where the soul moves faster than the mind, where the man, often without knowing it, reveals how deeply he's been stirred. When a man greets a woman in a way that seems unusually charged, attentive, or emotionally significant, what often lies beneath the surface is not just attraction, but the activation of something far more profound within the unconscious psyche. In psychological terms, this woman may have awakened his inner feminine, the anima. The anima is the internalized image of the feminine in the male unconscious. It is not merely a concept of women, but a complex psychic function, shaped by personal experience, cultural influence, and inherited archetypes. When a man becomes emotionally drawn to a woman, especially in a way that feels inexplicably powerful or destabilizing, it often means she embodies aspects of his anima. The greeting becomes a symbolic moment in which the boundary between inner and outer worlds is blurred. In this moment of greeting, the man may experience a surge of energy that he cannot fully explain. He may find himself unusually nervous, reverent, or emotionally stirred. These reactions are not necessarily about the woman as an individual, at least not initially, but about what she represents in his inner psychic structure. She becomes, for him, a vessel for meaning, a reflection of something he has long carried but never fully integrated. This is not conscious behavior. It emerges spontaneously, often confusingly, and this is precisely what gives such a greeting its unique emotional weight. The man is not simply saying hello, he is, unknowingly, responding to a psychic image that carries with it tremendous emotional and symbolic force. This activation often leads to an altered state of consciousness. Time may seem to slow down. He becomes hyper-aware of her presence, of his own posture, words, and tone. There may even be a sense of awe or reverence, not because she has done something extraordinary, but because of what she has awakened in him. The anima, when projected onto a living person, charges interactions with a mythic quality. She is no longer just a woman. She becomes a mystery, an emotional symbol, a psychic mirror. His greeting, in this case, is the first expression of that shift. It is his psyche responding to the call of something it both yearns for and fears: wholeness. It is not uncommon for the man to feel disoriented after such encounters. He may not understand why he was so affected by a simple hello, why his usual emotional defenses felt thin, or why he felt the need to impress or connect more deeply than the moment seemed to require. These responses indicate that something deeper than social integration has been stirred. The anima carries with it the promise of integration, but also the chaos of inner greeting becomes the point of entry into that psychological landscape. Whether he understands it or not, his behavior has shifted because his inner world has been touched. This is why such greetings often feel inexplicably intimate, even when they are brief or casual on the surface. They carry the emotional charge of the unconscious, the weight of a man encountering a part of himself that has long remained in shadow. The woman may not be aware of any of this, and he himself may only grasp it in vague emotional terms, but the greeting nonetheless becomes a sacred act, one that echoes far beyond the moment itself. It is the psyche speaking through the body, through the voice, through the unspoken tension in the air. In that simple hello, something ancient and deeply personal is being summoned into consciousness. When a man who is usually confident, composed, or socially fluent suddenly stumbles in his greeting, when his words feel uncertain, his gestures are slightly awkward, or his timing is off, he is not failing socially. He is revealing something psychologically profound. This is the shadow at work. The shadow, psychologically speaking, represents the part of ourselves that we deny, repress, or fail to recognize. It includes not just what we consider negative, like anger or fear, but also unacknowledged strengths, longings, and emotional vulnerabilities. When a man greets a woman he is deeply drawn to, and he unexpectedly becomes vulnerable, it's often because she is stirring elements of his shadow self into the light. This greeting becomes a kind of psychic rupture. It breaks the surface of his well-managed identity, what he presents to the world, and exposes something raw, unfiltered, and unfamiliar. He may laugh nervously, touch his face, avoid eye contact for a moment, or overcompensate with forced confidence. These small details are not mere nervous habits. They are manifestations of an unconscious struggle between his persona, the social mask he wears, and the emerging contents of his shadow. He is, in that moment, wrestling with parts of himself he did not expect to meet. She becomes the catalyst, and his greeting becomes the scene of an inner confrontation. The woman may notice that something in his behavior doesn't align with his usual demeanor. He may appear off in a way that is not negative but curiously sincere. This incongruence, this momentary lapse in social control, signals that he is feeling something deeper than he can immediately process. The greeting, then, becomes more than a social transaction. It is an emotional and psychological exposure. His unguarded tone, the warmth that sneaks through his voice, or the delay before he speaks, may all reflect the pressure of unconscious material rising to the surface. He is not performing. He is responding to the psychic energy being stirred within him. There's a specific kind of discomfort that comes when a man sees something in another person that mirrors a missing part of himself. In this case, the woman becomes a mirror of the unclaimed self, and his nervousness or hesitation during the greeting is a signal of that recognition. He may not know what it is about her that affects him so deeply, but his psyche does. The shadow often reveals itself not with clarity, but with intensity. And that intensity shows up in his greeting, its tone, its inconsistency, its weight. He may later reflect and feel surprised at how differently he behaved. That surprise is itself a symptom of shadow confrontation. What is most revealing about this dynamic is how involuntary it is. He may plan to act composed and self-assured, to give a cool and casual hello, but when the moment arrives, something else takes over. His unconscious emotion leaks out through his eyes, posture, or voice. He may retreat quickly, sensing he's shown too much, or he may linger without knowing why. This is not merely romantic interest. It's deeper. It's psychological exposure. He is no longer in full command of his image. The greeting has opened a portal into his deeper emotional architecture, and while he may not consciously understand what is happening, the woman becomes aware, perhaps intuitively, that she has touched something far more vulnerable than a surface-level attraction. The greeting thus becomes the expression of his inner struggle, the emergence of a hidden self into the fragile light of a first encounter. When a man greets a woman he is truly drawn to, and the greeting feels like a small act of courage, it often means he is stepping out of his established identity, what he usually presents to the world, and into unknown territory. This is not simply about social behavior. It is a moment of individuation, the deep psychological process of becoming more whole, more authentic, and more in alignment with the totality of one's psyche. In this moment, the greeting is not just about politeness or flirtation. It is an unconscious act of self-development, a move toward emotional risk and inner expansion. A man's persona, the psychological mask he wears in daily life, is typically well rehearsed. It helps him function in society, maintain order, and control how others perceive him. But when he meets someone who stirs something deeper, something beyond surface-level attraction, his persona begins to crack. He may greet her in a way that doesn't match his usual behavior. He might become gentler, more attentive, even strangely reverent. He might also become more awkward, as though unfamiliar with his own body or tone. These changes indicate he is not simply reacting to external beauty or charm, but that he is encountering something that disrupts his usual psychic order. In this disruption lies the beginning of transformation. He feels exposed not because he is weak, but because something within him is being activated that goes beyond control. The greeting becomes symbolic of this threshold moment between who he has been and who he is trying to become. It is uncomfortable because it requires emotional honesty, and honesty always carries risk. In saying hello, he may unconsciously be saying something much deeper. Here I am, uncertain, open, and in motion. This greeting then becomes a ritual of becoming, not a performance of what he thinks he should be. Such moments are often subtle and easily overlooked, but they are rich with psychological tension. His voice may tremble slightly or carry an unusual softness. He may make eye contact more deliberately, or just the opposite, struggle to meet her gaze at all. He might greet her with a quiet smile that lingers just a moment too long, or his words may catch in his throat. These minor signals are not accidental. They are the psyche's way of expressing that this moment matters more than it appears. The man is encountering a force within himself that pushes him out of predictability and into possibility. Emotional risk is central here. Greeting someone with genuine affection, vulnerability, or even awe is risky for the ego. It implies surrender, even if only for a few seconds, to feelings that are not entirely under control. The man senses, perhaps unconsciously, that this woman has the capacity to influence him, to change the way he sees himself, to challenge his internal equilibrium, and though he may not yet understand what she represents, he feels compelled to approach. The greeting becomes a psychological offering, an attempt to bridge the inner and outer world, to reveal something unspoken but intensely real. What is extraordinary about this process is that it does not require conscious intention. The man may not be trying to grow, to evolve, or to confront his own emotional limitations, but in this act, in this charged greeting, he has entered the space of transformation whether he wants to or not. He cannot remain fully in control because the emotion is greater than the persona can handle, and yet, in this very lack of control, there is authenticity. He is no longer performing a role. He is being drawn into something deeper than himself. That is the moment when individuation begins, not through grand gestures or declarations, but through a greeting that carries the weight of inner change. When a man greets a woman he is intensely drawn to, and his tone, demeanor, or body language carries an unusual emotional weight, it is often a sign that he is not engaging with her purely as an individual in the present moment, but rather as a projection of something from his unconscious mind. In psychological terms, this is the process of projection, where unconscious aspects of the self, both desirable and repressed, are attributed to another person. In this case, the greeting itself becomes emotionally charged, not because of who the woman is in objective reality, but because of what she unconsciously represents to the man. She becomes a canvas for his inner ideals, desires, unresolved emotions, and unmet longings. This projection happens silently, often without the man's awareness. He may feel overwhelmed by how much he is drawn to her, or confused by how deeply he cares about her presence in such a short span of time. He might interpret these feelings as love, or fate, or deep connection, but what he is truly experiencing is the emotional force of his own unconscious expectations being placed onto another. The greeting, often a brief and seemingly mundane event, becomes a doorway through which these powerful inner contents spill into the outer world. His voice may sound more tender, his words more careful, his gaze more intense. The moment feels elevated because psychologically it is. These projections are not random. The woman often embodies traits that the man has idealized, long denied, or has not fully developed within himself. She may remind him of an internal sense of beauty, sensitivity, mystery, or nurturing, qualities that exist within his own psyche but have not been integrated into his conscious personality. When he sees her, his unconscious identifies her as the bearer of these qualities, and suddenly, without planning it, his greeting becomes the first expression of that projection. It is not just hello. It is the psyche reaching out to something it believes it has found in the outer world that belongs within. What makes this even more complex is that projection can feel more real than reality itself. The man is not lying or pretending. The emotional tone in his greeting is genuine, but it is directed toward an image as much as toward a person. This is why the encounter may feel strangely meaningful or even sacred. He may speak slower, smile with a kind of reverence, or stand closer than usual, not out of strategy, but because something within him has been stirred that transcends ordinary social rules. This depth of feeling, this sense of emotional gravity, can only come from the activation of unconscious material. However, because the projection is unconscious, the man is not in full control of what he is expressing or why. He may walk away from the greeting feeling elated or strangely vulnerable. He may ruminate over the interaction, wondering why it felt so significant or why he seemed to lose his composure. These after effects are signs that the woman has tapped into his inner world in a profound way. His psyche has seized the moment to express something previously unacknowledged as logical. The greeting becomes, in effect, a moment of symbolic importance, not just a social exchange, but a revelation of inner content through outer form. This projection may fade over time, especially as the man begins to truly know the woman beyond the image he cast upon her. But in the beginning, during that first greeting or early interactions, the emotional tone can be especially heightened. It is a mixture of attraction, longing, idealization, and even fear, all unconsciously woven into his words and actions. The moment reveals much more than he intends, because the deeper psyche does not operate through conscious filters. It expresses itself symbolically, spontaneously, and with a kind of emotional purity that the rational mind can barely explain. In that greeting, we see not only how he feels about her, but also how he feels about the lost or hidden parts of himself that she unknowingly reflects. When a man greets a woman and, in doing so, subtly mirrors her emotions, adjusts his posture to match hers, or shifts his tone and pace to attune to her rhythm, this isn't simply a matter of charm or social training. It's the unconscious manifestation of a deep psychological resonance. This form of emotional attunement goes beyond conscious mimicry. It arises from a deeper place in the psyche, where empathy, unconscious desire, and archetypal forces meet. In this dynamic, the man is not only responding to her presence, he is, without fully realizing it, attempting to synchronize with something essential he perceives in her, something that resonates with his inner psychological world. Such a greeting is often gentle but intense. He may lean in ever so slightly, his body aligning with hers, not out of calculation, but out of instinct. He might unconsciously lower his voice if she speaks softly, or match her smile with one that feels equally warm and genuine. He may not even be aware that he's doing any of this. It's not strategy, it's instinctual. In Jungian terms, this behavior can be understood as a moment where the psyche is attempting to harmonize its inner contents with the outer world. The man senses in the woman something that speaks to his anima, or internal feminine image, and the emotional attunement becomes an unconscious way to meet her in that shared symbolic space. This attunement is not simply about liking someone, it is about resonance. When someone resonates with another, they are not merely perceiving external traits. They are recognizing in the other person something that calls to the deepest parts of themselves. In a man, this may be the longing for balance, for emotional depth, for connection that transcends physical form. So, when he greets her, and his gestures, expressions, and tone shift in subtle synchrony with hers, he is, in effect, responding to a symbolic reality, not just a physical one. She represents not just herself, but a part of his own psychological structure that he feels called to integrate. What makes this interaction particularly profound is that it typically bypasses the rational mind. He may not know why he finds himself smiling more softly around her, or why he feels compelled to slow down and really listen when she speaks. He may feel unusually calm or, conversely, unusually stirred. These feelings emerge not from the conscious ego, which tends to calculate and defend, but from a deeper, more fluid realm of the psyche. The attunement becomes a kind of dance between two unconscious systems, recognizing one another across the veil of the physical world. In this greeting, the man is seeking more than rapport. He is seeking alignment. On some symbolic level, he is trying to affirm, I see you, I feel you, you reflect something I need to understand. This attunement can create a powerful emotional moment, even if it passes quickly. The quality of the interaction is imbued with meaning because it activates a psychic potential within the man, something unfinished or yearning in his inner life that now senses a path forward. Even if the relationship doesn't continue, that greeting can linger in his mind, not because of the woman alone, but because of what she stirred in him and how his psyche responded. This kind of attunement reveals a deep vulnerability as well. The man, without knowing it, lets go of his rehearsed self and instead offers an honest emotional presence. He may not be aware of the meaning behind his actions, but his psyche is expressing itself through them. He may feel slightly embarrassed afterward, surprised at his own openness, or even shaken by the encounter. These reactions are signs that something unconscious has briefly risen to the surface, that the psyche found, in that moment of greeting, an opportunity to express a long-hidden truth. This truth is not always verbal. It is emotional, symbolic, and deeply human. The greeting then becomes not just a start to a conversation, but a silent acknowledgement of shared humanity and deep psychological movement. When a man greets a woman he is intensely drawn to and does so in a way that feels unusually reverent, humble, or emotionally open, he may be unconsciously responding to an archetypal presence that she evokes in him. In depth psychology, archetypes are not specific individuals or fixed traits. They are universal patterns of psychic energy that shape human behavior, emotion, and perception. The woman, in this case, is not only herself. She becomes a vessel, a mirror, a living symbol of an inner image that resides deep within the man's unconscious. His greeting, then, takes on an energy that seems disproportionate to the surface interaction, because he is, in effect, encountering something larger than her personal identity. The Anama archetype, a key concept in Jungian theory, represents the feminine aspect within the male psyche. It embodies sensitivity, intuition, emotional wisdom, creativity, and mystery. When a man meets a woman who unconsciously resonates with this inner image, he may find himself stirred in ways he cannot explain. His greeting might carry a softness or awe he doesn't typically express. He might speak more slowly, with care, or use words that reflect a sense of wonder or nervous admiration. It's not a conscious performance. He isn't choosing to act reverent. Instead, his psyche is reacting to what it perceives as a sacred encounter. This reverence does not necessarily come from an idealization of the woman's character or appearance. It emerges because she has, for reasons outside his awareness, activated an archetype that transcends logic and even personal history. She touches something eternal in him, something that existed before he met her and would continue to exist even if she disappeared from his life. His greeting becomes a symbolic act, a subtle ritual of recognition. He is not just saying hello. He is, unknowingly, addressing something that feels divine or redemptive within his own inner world. This archetypal response often overwhelms the conscious ego. He may feel unusually self-aware, emotionally moved, or disoriented during the greeting. He might forget what he intended to say, or find himself speaking from a place of emotional depth that surprises even him. His body language may reflect submission or admiration, his shoulders slightly bowed, his eyes softened, his tone quieter. These gestures are not about impressing the woman. They are about unconsciously honoring the archetype she has awakened in him. He is participating in a moment of psychic alignment where the outer image and the inner figure seem to merge, even if only for a fleeting second. Such greetings carry tremendous psychological significance. They can mark the beginning of emotional transformation, even if the relationship never develops beyond that moment. For the man, that brief encounter may open a door into deeper self-awareness, prompting dreams, reflections, or even an internal crisis. Why did she affect me so strongly? What did I feel in that moment? What part of me came alive? These questions begin to surface because the archetype has been activated and now demands integration. The woman becomes a symbol through which the unconscious calls the man toward growth and inner reconciliation. This kind of emotional opening can also provoke fear. The man may retreat, avoid eye contact, or act coldly afterward, not because he doesn't care, but because something in him senses the power of the moment. The archetype stirs not only longing but also confrontation with the unknown. To engage with it fully would require surrender of control, certainty, and even one's carefully constructed identity. So the greeting becomes both a beginning and a threshold, an invitation and a test. The man is not just responding to a person, but to the living presence of meaning that she unknowingly carries. He feels it in her presence, and his greeting becomes the first symbolic gesture in a potential journey inward, a journey toward wholeness, shaped by the mysterious energy of archetypal encounter. So when a man greets a woman in a way that feels unusually tender, charged, reverent, or even awkwardly sincere, it is rarely just a social formality. It is a moment shaped by the unconscious, charged with projection, stirred by archetype, and steeped in deep psychological meaning. In that small gesture, those few seconds, his psyche may be revealing everything: his longing, his fear, his admiration, and the image of the inner feminine that he spent his life unknowingly searching for. It is not about the greeting itself. It's about what that greeting carries. It's a signal from the depths that something within him has awakened. And if you are the one receiving that greeting, understand, he may not even fully know why, but in that moment, he's no longer just a man saying hello. He's a soul encountering something sacred.